We'll talk about the corridors of power, the horror corridors in the NHS, as it is revealed that patients die in those corridors and they don't notice for hours.
Well,
the BBC, two-tier policing, and so on and so forth. It's all coming up.
Loads to discuss with Kevin between 7 and 10. I'm back tomorrow between 4 and 7. I mixed up Blue Velvet and Blue Jasmine. Blue Jasmine is the one that Kate Blanchett is in, but David Lynch, Blue Velvet, another brilliant film, Twin Peaks, an incredible series as well. He is very sadly died at the age of 78. I am back tomorrow from 4 o'clock. Kevin's next. See you tomorrow.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I am your esteemed host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'm here to help. Stand by for 3 high-octane hours of news, views, and topical debate. You know the drill. Get on the phone and call me on 03444991000. It's good to talk on Talk. Or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number. And as always, I promise to play your message out. Let's go. Here's what's coming up. Back to the migrant crisis, and 215 more undocumented foreigners sailed across the channel yesterday as this escalating disaster went from bad to worse. 99 more of these forlorn souls had to be rescued, saved from the sea by the French Coast Guard as their dangerously overloaded boats struggled to stay afloat. That was just off the French coast. So another day, another catastrophe on the channel, and on this goes. So, Keir, how is your smash the gangs strategy going? Have you smashed any gangs yet? Have you caught a single people smuggler, in fact? Or has that 150 million quid you spent on high-tech, state-of-the-art equipment for your crack border security command force basically gone straight down the drain? Let us know if you're watching, Keir. The number is 03444991000. How did Never Hear Keir deal with this serious situation? by flying off on yet another of his overseas jollies, this time to pose for pictures with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Isn't that special? 03444991000. Meanwhile, back in Britain, Lib Dem leader Ed Davey, Sir Ed Davey. Why is that guy a knight? Sir Ed Davey provided strong evidence that when Elon Musk called him a snivelling cretin, he had a point. Watersports fan Ed delivered a speech today demanding that we rejoin the EU Single Market Customs Union. No, Ed. The British people voted to leave the Brussels Club. Democracy at work. Didn't you spot that? 03444991000. Please rid us of idiots like Davey. In other news, Crazy Ed Miliband, talking of idiots, Crazy Ed Miliband's deranged drive to make long-suffering Brits colder and poorer continued apace as he conceded that useless 10 grand a plop heat pumps will never be as cheap as 3 grand gas boilers. So you can forget about your heat pumps. I think we'll stick with gas boilers, thanks, Ed. You know, that 7 grand, the difference in price, could come in handy to quite a lot of us. Stop this, you absolute fool. Unless this guy is stopped, is the severely mad net zero secretary on course to ruin this country? 03444991000. Plus, the scandal of the hopeless NHS as a new Royal College of Nursing report reveals that dead patients are routinely left in corridors unnoticed by overstretched medical staff. They just die and then they lie there among other patients who aren't dead for hours. Great, a snapshot of our marvellous NHS. How are Dynamic Health Secretary Wes Streeting's reforms going, do you reckon? Not too well, it seems. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Also tonight, Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has written to the BBC accusing the state broadcaster of fuelling knife crime. This after good old Auntie B promoted drill rapper Jake Fari as a lyricist who, and I quote, really stands out. Fari's song was all about killing a guy, which he actually did and served 15 years behind bars for. What does the bungling beeb think it is playing at? 03444991000. I'll bring you the extraordinary story of the This is a really extraordinary story. The long-serving police inspector, listen to this, who was summarily dismissed after a distinguished 27-year career for posting hurty words about those dozy dorks from Just Stop Oil on social media. Unbelievable. This, folks, is down to the scourge of woke senior cops. It's got to stop. Catch the bad guys. Don't fire the good guys because they were a bit nasty about Just Stop Oil. 03444991000. I'll go live to Washington to get the latest from Donald's own country. Ahead of his inauguration next Monday, I'll talk to Ben Habib about how the Trump effect looks set to change the world in a good way, and go live to Los Angeles to get Kinsey Schofield's take on yet another grief-grifting trip to fire-ravaged Los Angeles by, Meghan Markle. She's there again. She's there to help. Always a camera handy, though, when she's doing her charity work. Have you noticed that? Is the virtue signalling Duchess a tragedy vulture? That is the question. What do you reckon? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Thursday night together. And right off the bat, for the second night in a row, love Wednesdays and Thursdays because I'm always joined for the first hour by Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
I feel like you're on fire this evening. I think it's going to be a really punchy show.
I'm excited about some of the stories we've got. I really am. I mean, not necessarily in a good way. After you leave me, do stay tuned. You're going to love what you'll love and hate the story about the poor, long-serving police inspector, 27-year. It's a senior officer, 27-year, distinguished career, sacked summarily because he posted something not very nice about Just Stop Oil.
I mean, that says everything about our country, doesn't it? It really does. You know, when we desperately need really good, experienced and dedicated police officers, how about we just fire one of those good guys, as you said, for posting something that, frankly, most of the nation is thinking.
They really,
I don't know what he said about Just Stop Oil, but I have a sneaking suspicion that I would agree with it.
Yeah, you really will. He talks about the futility of their tantrums. You know.
Oh, what's wrong with that? It's true.
Yeah, that's what he got fired for. It's unbelievable. So stay tuned for that after 8 o'clock. I need every audience member I can get. But let's talk about the migrant crisis today. I wasn't going to lead on this. And then, of course, it emerged that yesterday 215 more migrants came across the channel from France in four, I use this term loosely, small boats. They've often got 100 people in them. They're not that small. But they are chronically overcrowded, and 215 people made it across the channel, of course, to be welcomed into the warm embrace of soft touch Britain. Well, they'll get 45 quid a year, 45 quid a week, 4-star hotel, free food, free lawyers, free doctors, etc. But 99 more had to be rescued from death just off the coast of France as their overloaded vessels struggled in the high seas. So fortunately, as I say, 99 all rescued, all safe. Thank God for that. So 99 rescued, 215 came across. And what was our Prime Minister doing today to deal with this crisis, to confront this new situation? Oh, I know. He swanned off on another of his foreign jollies, this time to pose for pictures with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. I mean, never hear Keir. There was never a better nickname for anyone. It's getting ridiculous, the fact that this guy, this I think, Isabel, is his 22nd trip abroad. These trips last 2, 3, sometimes 5 days. I think I read somewhere that something like 33% of his prime ministership has been spent in foreign countries. He's got to stay here. We've got a lot to deal with, don't you think?
He's beginning to remind me of Air Miles Andy. Do you remember Prince Andy?
Of course.
When he was trade secretary, what was he?
Trade envoy. Trade envoy. He was just always flying around, wasn't he, on junkets? And that's what we've got with our Prime Minister. And frankly, I don't think anyone's surprised he's out of the country, because whenever he's in the country, he gets a hard time. You know, people boo and heckle him, and no wonder they do. Like you, I think, well, I'm guessing you have some slight reservations about announcing in a blaze of publicity that we're signing up to a 100-year deal to support Ukraine. I have a lot of doubts about it, and I'd like to know on what democratic basis he made that deal. I personally, I think you agree with me, I don't want a 100-year deal with Ukraine. Where was this in the manifesto? Has he passed that? Has he passed that through Parliament, or has he just made? Is this a unilateral decision by Never Hear Keir?
I mean, God knows what will be left of the United Kingdom in 100 years anyway. You know, Sir Keir is doing pretty well in getting rid of much of what remains of it. So I don't see how he can possibly have any justification for signing us up to century-long commitments. But setting that aside, on the small boats, I think, how many did you say? 215
and 99 rescued just off the coast of France.
So do you know how many came over in 2018? Here's a little history.
Oh, yeah, go on.
So the total number who came over the channel in this way in 2018, which doesn't feel that long ago, does it, was 299. 299. That's all in 1 year. Yeah. And in that year, the government declared a national emergency, which didn't really result in any great emergency action, did it? No. And it's just extraordinary to look at the figures. You know, imagine if we'd actually done something then to turn back the boats and stop it. Then it wouldn't have carried on escalating. So the following year, it was nearly 2,000. And then once people realize, like, word gets around, you know, it's probably around the time that TikTok got popular, you've then got it going up to 8,000. And then by 2021, we're in 28,000. So my point is that now we are seeing on a daily basis the total amount that came over only a few years ago, and what a catastrophic consequence there has been to inaction every day.
Yeah, 260 came across on Monday. These are supposed to be the winter months when they don't come across. So
yeah, that's right.
Already, as you quite rightly say, Isabel, this year, which is very young this year, more than 600 have come across. 260 Monday, 215 yesterday. And last year, the total was something like 45,600. I mean, count them, that is a lot. Do you know how many of those? Now, all of them are illegal. Every single one of them are illegal. They come across here, mostly undocumented, but they come across on illegal vessels. Therefore, they are illegal immigrants when they arrive. So they should be deported. Do you know how many of last year's 45,600 or so migrants that arrived in Britain, and then loftily call themselves asylum seekers? Do you know how many we've deported? How many we successfully deported?
I mean, I'm going to go for 3, but it might be...
No, it was 215. 215 out of 45,600.
Who were bribed to leave. I mean, each of those people would have been given a resettlement package, as if the British taxpayer has any responsibility to do that. These numbers are off the chart. The total amount since 2018 is 151,161. I mean, each of them, as we discussed last night, with a gigantic price tag on their head for the British taxpayer. All of this was so avoidable, wasn't it? And it is still avoidable. It could be stopped today if we parked our armed forces where they need to be, our Navy where it needs to be, and just say, enough, this is an emergency. It is an emergency also for the people who are risking their lives doing this. You said today yesterday a bunch of people had to be rescued. I don't know what more criteria there needs to be to qualify for an emergency and a national security alert.
Yeah, this really is an emergency, and our government's doing nothing. We say this every time we discuss the migrant crisis, but it's important. This government, Keir and Calamity Cooper, his hilarious Home Secretary, their policy is smash the gangs. We will smash the people smuggling gangs. As I'm sorry to keep repeating this, but it's a ludicrous strategy, because if you smash every gang that exists right now, there will be new ones tomorrow. It's called supply and demand, and the demand is coming from the migrants. If you don't stop the migrants, there will always be people smuggling gangs. But let's dwell on this strategy anyway. So they set up this Border Security Command. They hired a guy, a former copper called Martin Hewitt, for £200,000 a year to run it. They spent £150 million, count them, £150 million on high-tech, state-of-the-art equipment to help them track the people smugglers. I'm sorry, I'm missing out the adjective. The evil people smugglers. Great. So that strategy won't work, but how is it going? How many people smuggling gangs have they smashed? I know, none. How many single people smugglers have they caught? I know, none. Now, while this catastrophe gets worse by the day, he swans off to Ukraine. Rachel Reeves goes off to China. I mean, they're like fiddling while Rome burns, aren't they?
Absolutely, completely. And you know what? Labour is in such a bad state, in the polls. It is crashingly unpopular. There is one thing, and it should be so straightforward, that they could do that would transform their popularity. And that would be if Keir Starmer went down to the South Coast and gave a speech on the beaches and just said, this is it, folks. This is the last migrant boat that is ever going to come to this country on my watch and in any future government watches. And I am today announcing that we will turn back every migrant boat that makes this crossing. Not a single one of the occupants is a genuine refugee, because if they were, they would have sought refuge in the first country of safety. And if he made that speech down on the beaches, I tell you what, he would transform his popularity.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. That is brilliant, Isabel. And, you know, this advice that we give for free to these politicians while we're on it. Hey, Kemi Badenoch, are you listening? Are you watching? Here's my advice to you. Make a speech tomorrow saying, if you vote for us, we will scrap every single element of the net zero claptrap. That'll get you votes, but you won't, will you? What is wrong with these people? Why don't they listen to us? Why don't they listen to the people? Why do they spend all their time polishing their stupid halos and not listening to what people want? And just before we go to break, I just have to get this in, Isabel. You know when Elon Musk last week called Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader, a snivelling cretin? On Twitter. Well, Ed provided more evidence today that Elon Musk was exactly right. So snivelling cretin Ed made a speech today calling for us urgently to rejoin the EU's single market custom union. What is it going to take to persuade idiots, I'm going to say this, morons like Ed Davey, that the British people voted to leave all that?
I mean, can I just say that in the place that I live in the Cotswolds, there are still a load of EU flags on certain houses. You know, there are people that just cannot let it go, and they tend to live in very nice parts of England.
They can afford that kind of outlook
Just
on life.
let it go.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Let's go to break. When we come back, another crazy politician, Ed Miliband. Let's focus on him. Stay tuned for that.
If I'm perfectly honest, it's not just the BBC. I think for a long time now, we've allowed a lot of platforms to promote this level of negativity. So what's happened is some very shocking lyrics, some very shocking content has now become mainstream, acceptable all over platforms across the world. You know, for a long time, a lot of this negativity has been played, so it doesn't come as a shock to me.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. I want to try and squeeze a few things in here, Isabel. Well, first of all, before we get to Ed Miliband, whose net zero deranged insanity is going to make all of us poorer and colder, that maniac must be stopped. And I'm not overstating this. He's mad. He is quite literally mad. His policies make no sense. They're incoherent and not based on the facts. They're based on his dream of a green world, which is never going to happen. We'll talk about that in a minute. But a couple of things have emerged from the London Assembly, you know, presided over by, ready a drum roll, Sir Sadiq Khan, the diminutive mayor. Peter Fortune is Reform UK's single representative in the London Assembly. He said to all of the representatives, including the mayor, he said, let's all work together to combat knife crime in London, because of course, you know, a lot of people die in London due to stabbing. A lot of people get seriously injured, often just young kids, school kids, you know. So Peter Fortune said, let's work together. Do you know what Sadiq Khan's response was? I'm proud to say that I and my colleagues in Labour have decided never to work with Reform UK.
Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. How utterly pathetic. Sorry, I was not aware of this story because I would have been really, really riled if I'd known about it earlier. I mean, that is as low as it gets, isn't it? You know, you've got somebody...
Politicizing the fact kids are getting killed.
I don't care what party anyone's from. They could be even from a party that you and I might consider on the fringes or some kind of bad group. If their aim in working together is to prevent or reduce or in some way end this hell, why wouldn't you just say, yes, for this, actually, we are going to work with you?
Absolutely.
It's just unbelievable.
Right, while we're on this, have a look at this. You won't believe this.
I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
Avoiding a misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes, if you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for you misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that. It's all over the television.
Yeah, look, he is there. That is the Sir Sadiq Khan, Isabel, saying he doesn't know what Susan Hall, she's the Tory leader in the London Assembly, former candidate, of course, for the mayoral position. She lost. But there she is talking about grooming gangs. Sadiq Khan says he doesn't know what she's talking about, that he's never heard the phrase grooming gang.
I think he's just flammeling because he has absolutely no idea what kind of statistics or evidence there is in relation to London on that subject, because in his head he's just parked it as something happening up north, which he doesn't need to worry about. I think he was absolutely exposed there for what he is, which is an utterly mediocre, not even a B-list politician. He's somewhere down there in the M's, N's or O's of politicians' league tables. He's just such a lame disappointment for our great capital city.
Yeah, a man who prioritises clean air over kids getting stabbed to death. a man who allegedly prioritises clean air. He just wants the money, actually, for ULEZ fees over women feeling safe to walk the streets in his city, which they don't. I'm all for clean air and all that. Well done, great. But to be honest with you, Isabel, I used to live in LA. I now live in London. If I wanted clean air, I wouldn't live in these bloody great cities. I'd live in the countryside. Clean air is not an obsession of people who live in cities. Safety is. We want to be safe on the streets. We don't want to be stabbed to death. And we want our mayor to know what the hell grooming gangs are.
Yeah, quite. I mean, clean air is nice. Of course it's nice. No one's going to disagree with that, are they? But the thing I've always found really weird is that he's fixated on clean air in the fresh air and not clean air down in the underground, where millions of Londoners are in a very confined space and breathe air that is literally full of horrible particulate matter. I mean, you only have to run your hand along the wall in the tube and it will come out absolutely filthy to see what's in the air down there. And there, people can't escape from it. There is no circulation in the way that you have in the open environment. So why doesn't he focus on that? I've never understood that, the illogic of that.
Yeah, every day I'm down there, and I do quite a lot of things in my life that are not good for my health, to say the least. But probably the worst thing I do to my health is to regularly, every day, twice a day, sometimes more, travel on the London Underground, because, as you say, the air down there is basically poison. He does nothing about that. Listen, I'll tell you what we'll do now as well. We're going to break and we'll deal with two prominent Labour cabinet ministers after these messages. First, I think Crazy Ed Miliband, the net zero zealot, and then West Streeting, the health secretary. So stand by for that. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm talking to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Before we get to our two-bit low-grade cabinet ministers, were you a fan, Isabel, of the films and the work of the great director David Lynch? He's died today, age 78. He did Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive. Were you a fan at all?
So, not really. Was this mainly 80s, 90s?
Yeah, 80s, 90s. The only reason I've got a story about him, that's all. I'm a massive fan of his work. When I lived there, we were in a restaurant called the Des Amis, and there are four of us, and he's on the next table, a big table, about 20 people, with his daughter Kelly Lynch, an actress and director herself, and apparently it was her birthday or something. Anyway, we made a bit of a noise, as I'm wont to do, and he came over. We knew who he was, and I said, "Oh, David Lynch is coming over," and he came over and he sort of pulled up a chair. He said, "Do you mind if I join you guys?"
Oh.
And I go, well, yeah, sure. Why? He said, because you seem so much more interesting than the people I'm with.
Love that. How many times have you been tempted to do that, by the way? You're having a bit of a dreary meal somewhere with whoever it may be. There's a table that's quite clearly having more fun. You're like, I might just go and join them.
Yeah, and anyway, I said to him, so, David, what's Twin Peaks all about? He goes, damned if I know. Anyway, let's get back to the serious stuff. Let's talk first about, I want to cover two failing cabinet ministers, I might say. The first one is Ed Miliband. Now, I'm sure you are too, increasingly concerned about this man's deranged net zero zealotry. He conceded today that while he turns this entire country into one great mass of unnecessary windmills and solar farms that won't be enough to power this country properly, and while he cancels all oil and gas exploration in the North Sea, suicidally for our economy, he conceded today that heat pumps, which, by the way, everybody says are rubbish, but they're the eco version of central heating. Heat pumps will never be less expensive than gas boilers that we all know and love now. Heat pumps, right now, would cost you, if you're lucky, 10 grand. A new boiler, 3,000. So there's a £7,000 difference. He wants us all to spend that £7,000 extra, to go along with his green master plan. Meanwhile, across the pond, Americans, they already have historically cheap fuel prices because of fracking. We banned fracking because it would cause earthquakes in Blackpool. No, it wouldn't. And now, of course, Donald Trump has told the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry, to drill, baby, drill. Their energy prices are going to be next to nothing. Meanwhile, thanks to this lunatic, our energy prices are going to rocket. We are going to get poorer and poorer and poorer. And what is the point of Ed's great mission? To make us a world leader in net zero. What is the point? We produce less than 1% of the world's carbon emissions. China, which supplies us with our windmills and solar panels that they make with fossil fuel, that produces 28% of the world's carbon emissions. And now, over in America, another massive producer of carbon emissions, they're going to go backwards on it. They're not going to bother at all. So why are we bothering? We'll be a world leader. Don't care. Don't want to do it.
Ed Miliband's already a world leader in absolute ocean-going muppetry. Remind me to make sure that no politician I'm ever associated with willingly wears a hard hat for any photo opportunity. It just makes them all look completely ridiculous, doesn't it? As if Ed Miliband needed any help in that endeavour. The whole heat pump thing has been a fiasco. The government just doesn't want to admit it, and neither did the last government. But these things are completely ill-suited to British housing stock. I was just looking at this earlier today, and at the moment, there's only about 250,000 heat pumps in Britain, and they're probably all in some kind of Ed Miliband show home of some sort. In total, the UK has around 30 million houses, and only about 5 million of those would ever be suited to heat pumps. It may even be less than that, actually, because most homes in the UK are insufficiently insulated to make the damn things work. They just don't work in big old drafty houses.
Here's another thing. Yeah, I'm off the hook on this. They can never force me to have a heat pump because I live in a terraced house. I live in Coronation Street. No, I do live in what you might call a middle class Coronation Street in North London, and heat pumps you can't have heat pumps in terraced houses. You can't have heat pumps in flats and apartments. You can't have heat pumps in high rises. So the whole thing is just verbiage. It's absolute nonsense. And I do worry that, you know, even Keir Starmer must stop this lunatic. He's a lunatic. He really, really is. He's a danger to this country. He's going to make us all poorer, and I think he'll break the economy. So this has to be stopped. Let's move on to another minister who I've got a little bit more time for, although
Kev, I must say you did miss an opportunity there. I mean, can we now do a thing that whenever we do a piece on Ed Miliband, we have to show the picture of him eating the bacon sandwich?
Yeah, we'll get that up. Excuse me, production. We're going to get that up. Yeah.
It just sums up the whole of Ed Miliband, really.
Yeah,
doesn't
and then
it?
there's with the ukulele when he's blowing in the wind. Have you seen that? I mean, God Almighty!
That might be the end.
This man is in the cabinet. There he is. There he is. Save our bacon. He's going to kill our bacon. He's going to kill us all, this guy. Let's talk about West Streeting, who is a better proposition, I must admit. But I'm afraid he's looking to me now like yet another, the latest of the many health secretaries who come along and say, I'm going to reform the health service, and all they ever do is muck around the edges and achieve the square root of sod all. I'm afraid it's looking that way. A new 460-page report today, Isabel, by the Royal College of Nursing, which you must point out is actually a trade union. So, but that said, it represents nurses. This is titled On the Front Line of the UK's Corridor Care Crisis, and it reveals that dead patients are routinely lying undiscovered for hours in A&E, usually in corridors, among live patients because staff are too overstretched to notice. And a shortage of beds means that the sick are being left in what they call animal-like conditions in car parks, cupboards and toilets. So they need more money, they need more staff. Here's an idea, Wes. If you're going to be serious about this, we've discussed this before, why do these people never listen to people like you and me when we say, here's an idea, save £40 million by getting rid of your 800 diversity officers. Save possibly billions by getting rid of nearly all of your 3,500 middle managers with no medical qualifications who earn £100,000 or more. Many of them earning 300,000, 400,000, some of them 700,000. None of them do jobs that are crucial. This NHS is a basket case of overspending and overstaffing. If West Streeting wants to be serious, get rid of all those people I just said and spend that money on nurses and doctors and maybe even ambulance drivers. Good idea?
Well, there's so much else, isn't there? I mean, they could get rid of all the translation services that are provided for people who have moved to this country but don't speak the language. Well, you know, if they're getting free healthcare, I think they might as well use some of the money they've saved to actually learn how to speak English or use an app or whatever. There's no way we should be paying for translation services within the NHS. The NHS, hospitals up and down the land indulge in all sorts of ridiculous nonsense during Black History Week. What's the NHS got to do with that? Why is a single penny of our money being wasted on that in hospitals? When are we going to drop the pretense that the NHS is somehow the envy of the world? It isn't the envy of the world, it is third world. And those descriptions that you just gave there of dead patients lying amongst the living in corridors, not only does that strike me as very true because I've had some personal experience of that horror, but secondly, it just makes me think of factory farms, you know, the way battery chickens are raised, you know, where the dead chickens lie amongst the living because it's so overcrowded that they're trampled on and no one notices, least of all the farmer in this case being our government. So why will Wes Streeting fail? He will fail because the problem is just absolutely systemic.
Yes.
It is not fit for the modern age. It was a lovely idea. It is a wonderful thing, staffed, and basically only survives because of the phenomenal dedication of so many doctors and nurses and other support staff. That's the only reason this thing staggers on. But it is time, I think, I'm so sorry to say this, it is time to put the NHS, or rather the people that depend on it, out of their misery. It just cannot provide reliably the quality and consistent standard of care that we are entitled to expect for the amount of tax we pay on it. It just isn't working, folks.
Absolutely. And so far, what has the Labour response been to this escalating health crisis we've got? It has been the traditional Labour response. I know, let's throw some more money at it. Here's £25 billion. When you give the NHS £25 billion, by the way, it gets between 180 billion and 200 billion pounds every year from taxpayers anyway to fund itself. Basically, every single year it says that 200 billion isn't enough, we need some more. Now, proper governments sort of say, well, you know, why don't you try and manage on that astronomical sum? This government, of course, is Labour. So, oh, yes, have some more money. Here's 25 billion pounds more. You might as well take that 25 billion pounds, build it into the shape of a bonfire and set fire to it, because it will make no difference at all except be another burden on taxpayers. Wes Streeting, you know, I sort of quite like the cut of his jib. I think he's one of the more reasonable Labour cabinet secretaries, but he is showing all the signs of every other health secretary in that he has got no idea how to sort this out. And indeed, as you quite rightly say, I'm not going to say probably won't, I'm going to say he will not sort the NHS out, because it is beyond repair. It really is. Isabel, let's go to a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about that other hallowed public organisation that we have to pay for, the BBC. That next. Stay tuned.
If I'm perfectly honest, it's not just the BBC. I think for a long time now, we've allowed a lot of platforms to promote this level of negativity. So what's happened is some very shocking lyrics, some very shocking content has now become mainstream, acceptable all over platforms across the world. You know, for a long time, a lot of this negativity has been played, so it doesn't come as a shock to me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're still talking to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, front page of The Sun today. If you're watching the show, folks, on YouTube, you'll see this. We'll play this up anyway, but just for theatrical purposes, I'll hold it up myself. Actually, there you go. It says rapper on BBC is Jimmy's killer. This piece of work, this piece of filth on the front of the Sun is a guy called Jake Fari. His music was played on BBC One Extra, where the DJ there, Theo Johnson, praised him as a star in the making, who, and I quote, really stands out. Jake writes songs about killing people, and he knows about that because he killed someone himself. In fact, he wrote a song about it. In 2008, he murdered a 16-year-old gentle giant called Jimmy Mizzen in a bakery in South London. He sort of picked a fight with him and then it ended up hurling a dish full of sausages at his neck. And the dish caught his neck, split an artery and killed him, 16 years old. Fari went to jail for that, got a life sentence. Of course, the life sentence lasted less than 15 years. He went in 2008, came out in 2023, and has since pursued his career as a drill rapper, writing about, you know what they say, Isabel, if you want to write well, write about what you know. Well, Jake Fari knows about killing people, so he wrote a song full of lyrics like, let's read some of them. Stuck it on a man and watched him melt away like Ben and Jerry's. Sharpen up my blade, I've got to keep those necessaries. Stay alert and keep it ready. Any corner could be deadly. And then he goes on to say, see a man's soul fly from his eyes and his breath gone. I wanted more, it made less wrong. Seeing blood spilled, same floor he was on, etc., etc. This was played on the BBC. Robert Jenrick, the Secretary, the Shadow Justice Secretary, has written to the BBC today to say you're fueling knife crime. Poor Big Jimmy's mother, Margaret Mizzen, today, in the understatement of the century, said, I have to say that I'm a bit disappointed with the BBC for playing his music. Now, this is what, I'm furious about this anyway, and Robert Jenrick's absolutely right. This is what the Beeb said. It said, this is their official quote on this. And by the way, they've banned Jake Fari from the airwaves now, belatedly. But they said, we have strict editorial guidelines before any content is broadcast or posted. So you saw that song, and according to your strict editorial guidelines, you thought that was okay to play. And then it went on to say, BBC One Extra does not glamorise violence. Yes, it does. You can't release statements like that when you obviously did not look at the content of this song. And this is disgraceful, isn't it?
Completely disgraceful. Why doesn't the BBC just admit that they completely screwed that up? And how amazingly dignified and awesome and inspiring is the mother of the victim. I was listening to her interview earlier today. I think she gave an interview in which she spoke in such a sort of measured way about this fresh horror that has been inflicted on her family. I mean, how hard must it be, how horrific to have all this come up again? You know, she's probably there's never a moment of the day that she's not still grieving for her lovely, innocent son. And yet she still sort of preaches forgiveness. You know, she's still not somebody who is bitter about anything. She doesn't deserve this. Her late son doesn't deserve this. And viewers of the BBC should not have it foisted on them. And it's just so awful, isn't it? You know, there's a bit of me that just thinks, can we find a way to put this character back in prison? Yeah. Because frankly, he's clearly not actually rehabilitated, is he? He's not showing signs of regret through that song for what he did. Yeah. On the contrary, he's kind of glorifying it. And you know, if people can go to jail, if people can be sentenced to years on end behind bars for tweets that frankly or posts on social media that cannot be proven to have caused anyone any physical harm, then how come someone like this can put a song out like that and not be in prison too?
Yeah, and then the BBC said it has strict editorial guidelines before playing any songs. Well, if it read those lyrics and then played them, to hell with the BBC. It's got a real problem there. Now, you're right about Margaret Mizzen, Jimmy's very, very dignified mother. As I said, I think these are the understatements of the century. But she said, she, by the way, was awarded an MBE in 2013 because of her son's death. She has worked tirelessly to promote peace and safety on the streets. And she said, as I say, I have to say that I'm a bit disappointed with the BBC for playing any of his music on the radio station. I'll be wanting answers about that as well, because I think it doesn't matter if it wasn't for the two songs that are the worst. It's the fact that they played them. You know, this is what she said. I love this. You know, when you're playing the songs of a murderer, it's pretty bad, isn't it? Yes, Margaret, it is. I mean, the BBC should hang its head in shame.
I mean, I assume the BBC didn't actually know that he committed this awful crime because he disguises who he is. He goes around in a mask like most cowards
Balaclava, do. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they probably didn't know his identity. And I don't know whether they listen to the lyrics of every song before they play it. It seems a bit unlikely. So why didn't they just say, well, you know, sorry folks, this one kind of slipped through the net, and it is obviously appalling, and we truly apologise to everybody, but in particular the family.
Exactly right. They've screwed up, but they will not admit it. It would be much better if they say, oh, we've made a mistake here, we should not have played this song. Instead, they say, we look very closely at everything before we play it. So you looked at those lyrics and you thought it was all right? I suppose you're right, Isabel. You know, they might not have known it was written by a guy who actually killed a guy. But I'm thinking, you know, the BBC, you know, they were very, very vigilant. They weren't vigilant about this at all. Played it and then said, ooh, this guy's really good. He's a star in the making. They were very vigilant, though, when somebody came out with a song just before Christmas that was critical of the Labour government called Freezing This Christmas. They banned that. I mean, God almighty.
I know, it's just so, and aren't you seeing parallels here with the incompetence of Downing Street? You know, that kind of reflex action, which instead of saying, actually, we really screwed this up, sorry, you know, they come out with the usual dreary formula about their editorial guidelines. It's exactly how Downing Street and Keir Starmer behave when they're on the back foot. They just say something that convinces absolutely no one and insults all of our intelligence. And this is just the establishment, isn't it? They can't ever seem to admit that they've cocked it up.
Yeah, well, that's the BBC for you. You know, they never admit they do anything wrong. They've always got an excuse for everything. Although when you get in touch with the press office, they will come up with their response, sometimes within the month. If they're really
that's marvellous.
If they're really getting their skates on, that is. You know, the BBC press office, folks, is basically an answer phone. Mainly, well, they never answer the phone, and they extremely rarely ever get back to you. They've really got to get their act together. BBC, I mean, oh my God, where do you think that's heading, Isabel? But they've got to get rid of the
I think it's a bit like net zero. It just keeps growing, and it will never ever leave us. I think we're stuck with it.
Quick last thought from you. What did you make of Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, who actually wants to get rid of the licence fee, but to force us to pay for the state broadcaster in our taxes? We'll all have to pay for it. That is to protect the left-wing BBC, a bid by, of course, the left-wing Labour government. Unbelievable.
I think that if this goes on much longer, there'll be more people leaving the country. How much can we take? That's the question of this absolute bunch of clowns.
Yeah, let's all leave. Let's go. Stop the world. I want to get off. Thank you very much, Isabel. Another great hour. We'll talk again next week. Isabel Oakeshott there, Talk's brilliant international editor. As I said to her earlier, when we come back, I'm going to bring you the story about a copper who's been sacked that you will not believe. It is wokery gone insane. Stay tuned for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Okay, in a little while, it's all happening in America, particularly Washington. In a little while, we'll go live to Washington ahead of the inauguration of President Donald Trump next Monday. We'll get the latest there and find out how America might change, how the world might change because of Donald Trump. I think the Trump effect is going to be pretty dramatic all over the planet. I think we've already felt it in the Middle East. You can forget about old Fossil Joe. I got the peace deal. No, you didn't. Donald Trump got the peace deal. Do you think it's a coincidence that just what was it, 5 days before Donald Trump becomes president. He said, if there is no peace in the Middle East, in Gaza, when I come in to power, there will be all hell to pay. Guess what? There's a deal on the table. That isn't Joe Biden. Joe Biden was criminally weak abroad, the weakest American president in foreign policy, probably in history. Donald Trump, not so much. I wonder if it'll have the same effect with Russia and the Ukraine. Some people believe he will. Sort of Russell Quirk, my colleague earlier, he said he thinks that within days, Donald Trump will bring about some kind of settlement over there in Eastern Europe. I hope Russell is right, but I personally think that's a long call. That's a difficult call, but he'll change the situation. So Donald Trump is changing the world. We'll talk about that. Greg Swenson is standing by in D.C. To talk to us very soon. But first, check this out. I mean, I can't believe this. A long-serving police inspector of the Merseyside police force, a guy called Ross Meredith, he had actually impeccable right-on credentials, including his membership of the Merseyside Police's LGBT plus network. Anyway, he has committed, according to the Merseyside Constabulary, the egregious crime of declaring on social media that climate change activists, you know, those idiots who stop the traffic or spray paint Van Goghs and the Mona Lisa and all that sort of thing, disrupt other people's lives. He said that they were like spoilt special needs kids, and suggested that they were suffering from a mental health condition. So heinous were these comments, these social media posts considered to be by the Merseyside police, that they accelerated. They had a really special fast misconduct hearing. They accelerated it especially. And this poor guy, 27 years, was summarily sacked for gross misconduct. He also posted about Just Stop Oil. This evil cult are so dim, they simply do not realise the futility of their tantrums. What sensible person would disagree with that? Who could argue with that? Well, the Merseyside police, the gloriously woke Merseyside police, said that Meredith's language had, and I quote, here we go, listen to this claptrap, undermined our considerable efforts to be an inclusive force that represents all of our diverse communities. Give it up. What a cliche. Well, look, to talk about this, here is former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector, one of the old school coppers that we ought to still have, but I'm afraid don't, Mike Neville. Welcome to the show, Mike. Now, he's a sort of former... This guy's a colleague of yours in a way. My guess is he's a good copper, 27 years. He's an inspector. And his career just ended like this for posts that, you know, they're not swearing, they're not vile. He just said this cult are so dim they simply don't realise the futility of their tantrums. He believes that they're suffering from some kind of mental health condition and that they act like spoilt special needs kids. Now, if I was his boss, I might say, listen, Ross, it's a difficult world out there. You know, let's be a bit careful with this. Don't do those kind of posts. You know what will happen. They'll only get the idiots all up in arms. Instead, immediate, specially accelerated gross misconduct hearing, and he's fired. Gone. His career's over. That's a disgrace, I think, don't you?
It is, absolutely, Kevin. I mean, when you look at the actual post, he was talking about... He even said the word dog dirt. He didn't say S-H-I-T. He said, you know, these are dog dirt on your shoe. These are such, like, bland posts he's putting up here. And you know as well as I do, what the public see is that the Extinction Rebellion and the like, they're stopping people getting to work, they're stopping people getting to hospital appointments, they're stopping people getting to their parents' funerals. The public are really angry with Extinction Rebellion. And when the senior police officers talk about, oh, we must be inclusive and we must, go along with all this, they are the ones who are out of touch. Inspector Meredith, he is the one who's in touch with public
Yes, exactly
opinion.
right.
He's the one who the people of Liverpool would say, I want this man to represent us. And as you say, he's in this LBTQ or whatever it is, and it seems to be right on, but he's had no mercy whatsoever. And I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Once again, we see the police or senior police officers completely out of touch with the public who they're supposed to serve.
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head there, Mike, that what Ross Meredith is saying, as I say, these are difficult times. You walk on eggshells when you start dismissing Just Stop Oil and all the woke warriors we're supposed to admire. He arguably should have been a little bit more careful. But is this a sacking offence to state what we all think?
What you've got, as you said, what could have happened, what used to happen in the police is he could have been called in by the chief inspector and told, look, whatever you're saying here, you've got to be careful, don't do this. But now, and you see it across the country, you see it in the Metropolitan Police in particular, people are dragged through the discipline procedure for the most stupid things. I was dragged through the discipline procedure for saying I don't agree with gay marriage. But these are personal opinions. These are things that are absolutely legitimate. And you're showing what you're showing now is that the Merseyside police, the people that put out, it's an offence.
We'll get onto that in a second. Yeah. This is we've got a picture of we flashed it up earlier. Can we see Ross again, Ross Meredith? Well, we will in a second. Anyway, I just feel so sorry for the guy.
Let's get a campaign. Let's have Inspector Meredith promoted. Yeah. Let's get him back. Let's get him promoted and serving the people of Liverpool and Merseyside, because he's obviously a decent bloke, I would suggest.
Yeah, look, let's just get this into context. There he is. Now, he's a middle-aged guy, but 27 years, so he's been a copper, boy and man, if you like. He obviously joined young. 27-year career. As far as I know, spotless. Obviously fell in with the sort of woke ways of the modern policing, joined the Merseyside Police's all-important LGBT plus network. Well, good for him. 27 years. That guy has just had his career ended for posting hurty words about Just Stop Oil. This is madness.
They're not even hurty words. They're not even hurty words, are they? As you said at your beginning, there's no swear words, there's no nasty words. As I said, he talks about dog dirt rather than dog S-I-H-I-T.
Yeah.
These are such bland nonsense. What is going on? I can only suspect that he's annoyed somebody higher who wants rid of him, because what he said, how they can classify that as gross misconduct, is absolute nonsense.
Yeah, that's not gross misconduct, is it? I mean, it's sort of very, very slight misconduct, I would suggest. And frankly, as you quite rightly said, Mike, all the audience, all of us is going, well, what he's saying is exactly what we think. In other words, that's what the people think, but the woke senior coppers are right out of step with what Ross quite rightly said, in my view. You might have been a bit more careful about it, but that is not a sacking offence. Now, let's get back to that point we were alluding to earlier. We are talking here about the Merseyside police, who notoriously, a couple of years ago, went into the Wirral, part of their patch, as it were, and let's have a look at this. If you're watching it, they had this van with a billboard on it. Read it. If you're listening, it says, these are coppers standing around with this van in a big square, public square in the Wirral, part of the Merseyside Constabulary, and on that is, being offensive is an offence. Well, the next day, the Merseyside police had to apologise for this ridiculous billboard on account of being offensive is not an offence. How could coppers get such a basic fact wrong, Mike. I'll tell you why, and you can give me your answer after mine. Because they are drunk with this wokery. This wokery has robbed them of the common sense we expect from our coppers. Madness and wrong.
It is madness, and you've got so many officers. There's officers on duty right now who are facing firearms, knives, who are being assaulted, who do a good job. But what you have is the senior officers who are absolutely obsessed with this wokery. Their whole career has been based on celebrating diversity rather than arresting robbers, burglars and thieves. And I always said at Scotland Yard, if you had to say to everybody above commander to the commissioner, write on a piece of paper how many burglars and robbers you have personally arrested and put it on your door of your office, they would be an embarrassed silence, because hardly any of them have made any arrests. Their whole career has been to do with, as I say, celebrating diversity, dealing with wokeism. We need a real step change in the police. The whole thing needs to be torn down and started again, because what the public wants are people with common sense, like Inspector Meredith, who can see that Extinction Rebellion, a bunch of spoilt middle-class brats who may well have mental health issues, who are doing stupid things. They just want officers to prevent crime and catch the criminals when their home is burgled or somebody is sexually assaulted or something is stolen. They just want officers to deal with crime. They don't want this nonsense. And the fact that he's been found guilty of gross misconduct is utter nonsense. And the people who found him guilty of this, it'd be interesting to see their WhatsApp messages and stuff, to see what jokes they have sent, because I'm sure they would be far worse than the comments he's made.
Absolutely, and just to go back to that billboard, I mean, it's pretty damn worrying when coppers, are so, as I said, drunk with their own wokery, that they don't understand the law. They think that being offensive is so awful, it must surely be a crime. It's not. And by the way, in this country, you have no right not to be offended. You're not protected from being offended. If somebody offends me, that is not against the law, or you, Mike, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a lot to offend me, I suppose.
And me.
Have a bit of a thick skin. But it is absolutely... The trouble is, all the time, is the police have diverted themselves. They've diverted themselves from dealing what we all want them to deal with. We want them to make the streets safe. We want to feel safe in our houses. We don't want our cars stolen. But they've set themselves these silly agendas where people putting tweets out or calling somebody a nasty name is some kind of massive offence that they can then put billboards up and stand around and feel good about themselves. As I said before, the whole policing system needs a reset. Refocus. Sir Robert Peel, he was, in 1829, the whole thing he said about the police, about preventing crime, he wanted guards, soldiers as in the police. All those things in 1829 are as true as they are today, but we've been diverted away to dealing with nonsense, and it has to stop.
We'll be diverted to diversity, if I can put it that way. Mike, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. That's former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville, friend of the show, of course. What do you think about that? Poor guy, 27 years. Put some hurty words, nasty words about, not that nasty, about Just Stop Oil. What we all think, actually, that their, deranged demonstrations are futile. I think it's not fashionable, it's no longer acceptable to talk about special needs kids, but we know where he's coming from. It does look to me as if they often have mental health issues. So, why does he lose his job for that? Gross misconduct. Do me a favour, please, everybody, police forces, Merseyside police, stop this madness. Next up, after this break, we're going to go to Washington to talk to Greg Swenson ahead of the inauguration. Paint the picture of how America's about to change big time. Stay tuned.
that would allow the hostages, or a good proportion of the hostages, to be released, and to have the actual military conflict ceasing for the period ahead. So far as this blip you've just been reporting is concerned, I wouldn't put too much concern on that. I mean, I may be utterly wrong, but I think this is what often happens at these last moments, that one side or the other tries to, in the pressure of events, to try to extract some further concession.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight to Washington, D.C. to talk to the chairman of the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, but he's in his home country, his great home country, right now in the capital. Greg Swenson, welcome, mate.
Great to be here, Kevin. Good to see you.
You too. So it's the inauguration on Monday of Donald Trump. I've written a few things that I think his inauguration will herald. You're going to be there for that great day. I think Donald Trump will revolutionize America. What he'll do is this. He will re-establish good old-fashioned common sense, kill off net zero lunacy, restore prosperity, destroy woeful wokery, and make God's own country the envy of the Western world, just like it used to be. Am I right?
You are, Kevin. You hit it. You've been right about this the whole time. So it's great to see the enthusiasm here in Washington. I'm at the Trump Hotel right now. You can see the American flag in the background. But there are American flags all over this town. It's really fantastic to see the enthusiasm, the optimism. And so, yeah, I think that the Trump 2.0 will be really great news for America and great news for the world. The challenge is, we're inheriting a freshly printed $12 trillion in debt from the Biden administration and 10 plus million illegal migrants that have to be paid for and looked after. So, there are some economic hurdles ahead that, perhaps we didn't have 8 years ago, thanks to the 4 years of Biden insanity. But yeah, most of those things you mentioned, like the wokery, like the climate fanatics, that's all going out the window. It's already started. And obviously on Monday with the executive actions, you'll see a real liberation from the shackles of DEI and ESG and anti-energy policy. It's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can't expect miracles on day one, but already the most important thing that is happening in America, and my God, I wish it was happening here too, is a cultural sea change.
Absolutely.
That no more wokery, no more of this net zero insanity. I want to put America first. I want to be patriotic about this country. I want to make energy. I want to make groceries. I want to make everything cheap for America. I want to make this country what it used to be, the envy of the world. Now, when I was a kid, we used to look across the Atlantic and we used to go, man, look at that place. Why can't we live there? Look at them. They're having it so good. Well, for a long time, we haven't thought that at all. I have a feeling that Trump will turn America back to those golden days, the American dream. So great. We wish him well. Let's talk just a little bit about the Gaza deal, the peace deal, which isn't so much a peace deal. It's still a ceasefire. It's looking a bit rocky now, but great excitement last night. Joe Biden, I mean, he's like a child. I did this. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You know, you cannot get away from the coincidence that on Monday Donald Trump becomes president. And the coincidence that he said, if there's not a peace deal on the table when I come into power, all hell will break loose. He sent an envoy to see Netanyahu, must have spoken to Netanyahu himself, and he said, you know, the art of the deal, you've got to give something. You've got to pragmatically make compromises. That has been done. A lot of people not that happy about the hostage situation, but it's better than nothing. So it's the Trump effect. Let's just remind ourselves of Joe Biden's response when in a press conference at the White House yesterday, somebody suggested that it was Donald Trump and not him who has got this peace deal. Let's have a look at this.
Who does the history books credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you. Thanks, sir.
Well, Joe, it was Trump and you're the joke. It's as simple as that. One more thing. Let's just play one more bit before we chat about it, Greg. Here he is, all guns blazing, explaining what a great job he's done, but not quite getting the terrorist group in the frame right. You know, that we all make this mistake, confusing Hamas with Hezbollah. Check this out.
More than 15 months of conflict that began with Hezbollah's brutal massacre on October the 7th.
There you go, Hezbollah. No, Joe, it was Hamas. He thinks this will be his legacy. I'm the guy who got the peace deal. Nobody believes that. Everybody thinks it was Donald Trump. Donald, of course, taking credit for it very noisily. So he should. His legacy will be falling off bicycles, going arse over backside, and also failing to climb up aeroplane stairs. That's his legacy.
Yeah, it was really pathetic. I thought the speech was horrible. It really just demonstrated how bitter and angry he is. You know, to have such a divisive speech. I know that's a word that the left likes to use a lot, but it really was. And I think he's got this massive chip on his shoulder. You see outright anger, especially from his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, and it's really it's just sad to see on a moment where, you know, he should be able to look back and maybe find some positive things, but to be in complete denial and argue that, you know, his administration was a success. You know, it reminds me of Jimmy Carter in many ways, but again, the comparisons to Jimmy Carter I think are quite unfair to Jimmy Carter. So, yeah, I thought the speech was pretty weak. He claimed he took a line out of Dwight Eisenhower's speech in January of 1961, where he talked about the military-industrial complex. And so last night he talked about the tech-industrial complex, which is kind of, you know, funny timing and very convenient that, you know, his campaign used big tech, notably Facebook and Twitter, to censor the Hunter Biden laptop, which was a blatant lie. And then, of course, in the White House, he used Facebook and Twitter to censor the Great Barrington Declaration, any criticism of Fauci, any mention of a lab leak, as opposed to, you know, the wet market natural cause of COVID. I mean, the list is long, but it is kind of ironic that he's now complaining about big tech because two of them have moved to the right. You know, in Mark Zuckerberg and, of course, Elon Musk. So, you know, free speech is really threatening to progressives. But the other thing we've seen, Kevin mentioned, you know, as I mentioned, progressivism, you know, it's the end of that. They have failed miserably. So, you know, I think that's another reason for the great optimism.
Absolutely. A few words, Greg, and I hope you'll keep in touch. We want to talk to you on Monday and Tuesday, obviously, about the great events that will unfold then. But a few words about the alleged special relationship, which I don't think is at all special, thanks to Keir Starmer and the Foreign Secretary David Lammy, and indeed the new our new Washington ambassador, Lord Peter Mandelson. David Lammy, of course, called him a neo-Nazi, and Peter Mandelson, our man in Washington, called him a white supremacist. There's no love lost there. Interesting that while I believe former Prime Minister, Liz Truss, has been invited to the inauguration. The current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has not, and nor has the new ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson. I think we can read a lot into that, can't we?
Yeah, and thank goodness for Liz Truss, and I know Priti Patel is coming over for the weekend, and of course Nigel has been will be
Nigel
here.
Farage, yes.
Yeah, Nigel Farage will be quite visible. So
Alex Phillips is coming as well.
And Alex is
so
with,
look out.
Yep, I will see Alex tomorrow night at the great. There's a great function on Friday night at the Hay Adams on the rooftop. It's the British and American kind of get the whole gang together. I think it's a great idea. And so I think this will be good for the relationship. In spite of the the speed bump with Labor and all the nasty things that they said about Trump. You do have Liz and Priti and Nigel, and I'm going to be real excited to see them tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
And Alex. And Alex.
Oh,
too.
yeah. Well, yeah. No, she's lovely. Give her my best, won't you? Missing her already. But seriously, I think it's poignant. Neither Starmer. I mean, they don't automatically get invited prime ministers, but they have been quite a few times in the past. A lot of world leaders coming, but not Britain's, and nor is our ambassador. The old ambassador is going to go, but not Peter Mandelson, who called Trump a white supremacist. So a last question to you. I think this is a really interesting situation. The Chagos Islands, which for some reason Keir Starmer and David Lammy are manically trying to hand to Mauritius, China's friend Mauritius.
And Joe Biden.
Joe Biden all in favour of that deal. These are very strategic islands. The island of Diego Garcia has got an airstrip on it that the Americans use, that we use, to monitor the Middle East and the Far East and China. Really strategically important. For some reason, our Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary dead keen to hand this to Mauritius. Mauritius go, well, we've never really had sovereignty, don't particularly want them. So we go, well, what about if we give you £800 million a year? Oh, well, yeah, maybe. None of us can work out why. But here's something that happened over the last day. It transpires that in a rare feat of sensibleness, our Prime Minister has said, well, look, we'll wait for Donald Trump to see what he thinks about this deal before we go ahead. We'll get the President's approval first. That approval will not be forthcoming. So Donald Trump will just say no, won't he?
Yeah, I would hope so, and I think so. And at least Keir has made somewhat of a diplomatic move here. I think that's good news.
I agree.
And that might be a step in the right direction. But for some reason, the parties of the left, both Democrats and Labor, they love weakness, and they don't understand deterrence, that peace through strength works. And it's worked before, and it will work again. But we've had 4 years in America of basically handing over the power and just gross appeasement to our adversaries and our enemies, and then you've had that with Labor in the last 6 or 9 months. So yeah, I think the tide will turn, and I think the government, in spite of their political differences, would be really wise to work out a relationship with the Trump White House and the administration. I think it's a good move.
Absolutely. Last observation, if you like. When you saw that speech yesterday that Biden made, confusing Hezbollah with Hamas, the old fossil, with old Kamala Harris, the cackling idiot, but that there.
Yep.
Did you look? I looked at them and thought, thank God they're going. It's like the clouds are lifting, right?
It really is horrible. And look at Anthony Blinken, who basically, he was the one who orchestrated that lie in November of 2020 about the 51 intelligence officers suggesting the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation from the Russians when the FBI had been sitting on it for a year and had validated. So Anthony Blinken will not go down well historically. He appeased Hamas, he's appeased the Russians. Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, begging Putin to pump more oil before the invasion. And then you have Kamala, just looking so useless in that clip. And they really dislike each other too, Kevin. That's something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
that relationship is blown up. Biden has been bragging that he could have beat Trump. Meanwhile, before he was pushed to the side of the road, kicked to the curb. He was polling below, 5 points down, but he was going to lose New Mexico, Virginia, and New Hampshire, solidly reliable blue states.
Yeah.
I mean, he's delusional. He's absolutely delusional. So Kamala's got a reason to be mad at him. Dr. Jill and Kamala hate each other.
Kamala hates Obama because Obama said, if you put her as our candidate, we won't win, we'll lose. And he was right, and they lost big time. They are losers, and it could be, if Donald does well, and I think he will, it could herald a whole new era of Republican America, and I say good for that. Listen, Greg, have a great weekend. Give my love to Alex, and we'll talk next week. Greg Swenson there, chairman of the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, over in his own country, God's own country, Donald's own country, the United States of America. We're going to talk to Ben Habib next, so stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's go straight over to my next guest. He is political and social commentator Ben Habib. Don't mention reform. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very well. Let's talk first of all, if we can, about the migrant crisis, because you probably noticed 215 more came across yesterday, 260 on Monday, and 99 yesterday had to be rescued from the sea as their overcrowded vessels struggled to stay afloat. So same old, same old. Our Prime Minister dealt with this escalating situation by heading off to Ukraine to pose for pictures with Zelensky. That means that this year alone more than 600 migrants have come across. And it transpires also, Ben, that last year 45,600, something like that, came across. Of those, they're all illegal, by the way. Every single one of them is illegal.
Of course. Yeah.
Of those, we deported 215. Now, let's talk about this government's response. How many gangs have they smashed? How many people smugglers have they caught? Having spent £150 million on high-tech equipment for their already very expensive border security force, headed up by a guy called Martin Hewitt, who gets £200,000 a year, who has pointed out to the Prime Minister, listen, if you don't have deterrence, you'll never stop these people coming. The Prime Minister's response to that, it looks like it was go, la, 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 not listening. What is this government ever going to do about it? This is getting worse by the day.
Well, Greg Swenson, who you had on just before me, said it, didn't he? That, we've had decades of appeasement, decades of governments not recognizing that in order to preserve the peace, you've got to be strong. Strength through peace through strength. That's what he said. And you can use the same analogy for our borders. Unless you recognize to be enforcing your borders, unless you're recognized to be taking the action that's required in order to prevent people from entering your country, and those who then get into your country are treated like criminals, as they should be, deported back to, where they came from. Unless you have that kind of approach, you're going to invite more and more people to do it. And here's the thing, all the lefty, liberal, open border brigade nutcases bemoan the fact that people are taking risks with their own lives in the Channel. People are dying in the Channel. Understandably, they're concerned about that. But that death in the Channel, those risks being taken by people in the Channel, would stop if those people knew they couldn't get into the United Kingdom. So it is exactly how Greg said it. If we're strong, we enforce our borders, we have the requisite deterrence, we deport the people who come into this country illegally. Actually, those seeking to come to the country would simply stop doing it. And then we would have a settled United Kingdom again. We wouldn't have to have these discussions incessantly, and we wouldn't be spending the thick end now of £10 billion a year and rising on illegal migrants. £10 billion a year. 6 times the amount required to pay for the pensioners' winter fuel allowance.
Yes, that's a very good point. And also bear in mind, I'll do the sums in a little while, but I worked this out the other day. Every single one of these migrants coming across the Channel. So we've got 215 today, 260 on Monday. Quite low numbers compared with some days. Some days we have more than 1,000 come across.
It's January.
Every
right?
single one. Yeah, sure. Every single one of those migrants will cost you, me, and every British taxpayer £40,000 a year for the foreseeable future. So the costs involved are astronomical. Our government, our Prime Minister, I don't think he likes borders. I don't think he likes Britain much. And I don't think he wants to stop this crisis. I don't think his heart is in it. I think his smash the gangs strategy is just something to say.
Our Prime Minister was in Ukraine, as you mentioned, striking what he called a 100-year partnership with Zelensky, for which, by the way, you can read a new international treaty for the protection of the Ukraine. That is something he was doing at no doubt vast cost to the United Kingdom in due course, while we ourselves as a country are suffering so much. I had a bit of a debate on X the other day when Reform announced Charlie Mullins.
Yeah, well, you
and
I talked about it, didn't we?
Yeah. And people said, Ben, people can change their minds. For goodness sake, he may have voted Remain. He now is prepared to, join what was the Brexit Party, which sounds balmy. Yeah. But notwithstanding the fact that he actually reiterated he wanted to vote Remain again if he was given an opportunity, the point about Remainers, which is where Keir Starmer is, the point about Remainers is that they subscribe to the global order. They subscribe to governance through supranational institutions, international treaties, and their attendant courts, their lawyers and their courts and so on, that adjudicate often over above the head of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. And that is basically anti-British. You cannot be a Remainer. You cannot be pro the governance of the United Kingdom through supranational institutions like Keir Starmer is, like Charlie Mullins is, and be pro-British. They stand absolutely in opposition to each other. And it's more than just optics, I think, that Starmer is in Ukraine striking a 100-year new international treaty, binding our country into a long-term commitment for the protection of Ukraine. How the hell did he get the authority to do that?
It's exactly what I was saying earlier, Ben. Was that in Labour's manifesto? Has that been voted for in Parliament? He's just done this unilaterally. Now, I don't know what you think. I don't want a 100-year deal with Ukraine and millions of other people. What does he think he's doing?
Yeah, Kevin, Ukraine, and I'm sure it's still the case, but up until the war was declared, war broke out with Russia, was worse on the international scale of law and order than Nigeria. I mean, this is not a country that has a reputation or a history in law and order with which we can identify, to which we can relate. This is a country, it's a rogue kind of nation. It wasn't part of the EU. This love of Ukraine is a new form of woke. Yeah. You've got to wear the Ukrainian flag.
Yeah, that's right.
To symbolize your commitment to Ukraine. Otherwise, you're some kind of, sort of right-wing
Neanderthal fascist. By the way, Ben, I've just done the sums, by the way. I probably got it wrong, but I'm not very good at maths. But here we go. Talking about those migrants that came across. So the 260 that came across on Monday, they will cost us over the next year £10,400,000. And the 215 that came across yesterday will cost us over the next year £8,600,000. That adds up to, this is quite a minor week in terms of the number crossing the channel, but this week's tally will cost us, British taxpayers, £19 million. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
If you extrapolate that across the year, Kevin, that's another nearly £4 billion a year. £4 billion a year just from this year's intake.
Oh, God.
We are collapsing.
Yes,
the nation is collapsing.
Yeah. And it's just symbolises this Prime Minister that as this catastrophe, the migrant crisis, is brought into sharp focus by this week's events. He gets on a plane for his 22nd foreign jolly since he came into power on July the 5th. 22 foreign trips. Stay here, Keir. Never here, Keir.
Don't. Actually, leave the country and never come back.
I don't mind him going to Ukraine, but next time you go, Keir, make it a one-way ticket.
A one-way ticket.
Let's go to break, Ben, and when we come back, we'll talk about the Trump effect. I'm with Ben Habib. You're a magnificent audience. Stay where you are. We'll be back in a mo.
I think that they were always going to have to offer something on a plate because there's so much political pressure, and that's why they've come up with what, frankly, I think is a bit of a dog's breakfast. I don't want to be disparaging about it because I suppose they're doing something. And also, by the way, I don't think anyone wanted a national inquiry of the type of national inquiries, public inquiries that we've had in other areas that have taken years and years and years.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Ben Habib. I will mention that he's a former deputy leader of Reform UK, but he's struck out on his own. Can say exactly what he likes, and he always says it. He says it so brilliantly as well. Ben, let's talk about the Trump effect. I've just discussed with Greg Swenson. We don't need to go over this. Let's not even consider the nonsense of what Joe Biden suggested when he said it was him that got the peace deal in Gaza. No, it wasn't. It was Donald Trump who said, if there's not a peace deal when I come into power, all hell will break loose. And shall we say that was the political equivalent of knocking heads together. So, yeah, good for him. That's the Trump effect internationally. But I just said to Greg, this is what I think. The most important thing that's going to happen in America, and it will reverberate around the world, is a kind of cultural sea change. We will emerge from the dark era of crazed wokery, nonsensical net zero. So I said to Greg, I think he'll revolutionise America and maybe the rest of the world too. He will re-establish good old-fashioned common sense, kill off net zero lunacy, restore prosperity, destroy woeful wokery and make God's own country the envy of the Western world. Meanwhile, we will have to peer across the Atlantic with envy because we're going to go to hell in a handcart thanks to the woke idiots who are ruining our country.
Well, the only way for us to keep up with the US is if we adopt their agenda, because they're going to supercharge their economy. They're going to be the place to invest because you'll get security, you'll get lower regulations, lower taxes. Money across the globe is going to move out of Europe, move out of the United Kingdom, move out of all countries that have adopted the net zero nonsense, high regulations, high taxes, and move to the States. And the only way to prevent that money from leaving the country is if we adopt the same agenda. So the pressure from Trump is going to come through the policies that he adopts for the US. But there's a more direct pressure I wanted to talk about. I was very pleased that we were going to talk about Trump tonight. There's a more direct pressure I think he can bring. One of the things he has said is that he wants members of NATO to pay up to spend up to 5% of GDP on their military. Actually, alongside, which is great, I think that's absolutely the right policy. Make Germany, France, all those other EU member states who are laggards, who don't stump up what's required in order to protect
They don't pay
Europe.
their bit, do they? No.
Make them pay up. But I think he can go further. NATO is all about the protection of basically the West. And what he should insist on is that if you want to be a member of NATO, you have to enforce your borders. No illegal migration allowed to cross. You have to challenge people physically at your borders in the way that he wishes to. He should make it a requirement that you detain and deport all people who enter your country illegally. And he can, through the mechanism of NATO, the protective blanket that the United States offers Western civilization, he can insist that Western nations wake up and start doing the right thing, or they will not have the protection of the US. And I hope he brings that pressure to bear on the Western world. We need that pressure. It's not just about having to follow suit for fear of ending up in recession and destitution. It's about having positive American pressure to do the right thing by the United Kingdom and Europe and so on.
Exactly right. And to go back to the cultural sea change that I think will happen in America and that we desperately need, but I'm afraid these Labour lunatics will fend it off as much as they can. For example, you know, over in Los Angeles, my old hometown, these terrible fires. Well, one of the small solaces of that situation is as they burn, they are ruining the DEI industry, diversity, equality and inclusivity. You know, the LA Fire Department, the LAFD, is run by 3 lesbians. I'm sure they're all called, funnily enough, they're all called Christina. That's coincidental, but you know, I don't want to decry their talents, but I think we know what's going on there. This nonsense, you know, you've heard of defunding the police. The Los Angeles, the great city, the Democrat city of Los Angeles, defunded the fire department, took $49 million away from it, leaving the fire department unable to tackle these blazes. This madness, you know, brought into sharp focus by that catastrophe in the City of Angels over there on the West Coast in California, will put a flame to diversity, and that needs to go. That nonsense, doesn't it? We've just done
it absolutely does.
We've just done the story, Ben. I'd be interested in your comment. Talking of this crazy wokery, a police inspector of 27 years' experience in the Merseyside police, guy called Ross Meredith, has just been summarily sacked after 27 years for posting hurty words on social media about Just Stop Oil. He said that they behaved like spoilt special needs kids. This evil cult are so dim they simply don't realise the futility of their tantrums. And for this, he has been summarily dismissed because the Merseyside police said that his language undermined our considerable efforts to be an inclusive force that represents all of our diverse communities. We've had enough of this nonsense, haven't we?
We absolutely have, and for that to come from Merseyside Police, the very police force that is responsible for overlooking what happened at Southport and all the things that went wrong in the protests that followed the Southport killings. Merseyside Police have a lot to answer for, and I mean, I don't want to change the direction of travel of this conversation, but, you know, Yvette Cooper, Keir Starmer, Merseyside Police, they knew things about this guy, which they hid from the public, which we now know, like he had Al-Qaeda workbooks and ricin and so on, but they deliberately hid it. And Merseyside Police probably did that in pursuit of the same DEI agenda to which you refer, because they feel absolutely cowed and unable to call a spade a spade. You know, Westminster Council, I think, was out hiring minority ethnic people from minority ethnic backgrounds the other day. The Bank of England came out and said there's no need to have a background in finance. What we want is people with a diverse background.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that advertisement the other day.
Yeah.
The RAF is doing the same thing. They want fighter pilots from diverse backgrounds, not the best fighter jet pilots, but people from diverse. I mean, who cares? I don't care what color you are. I don't care which flipping country your ancestors came from. Can you do the job? If you can't do the job, don't get the job. And this whole obsession with equal outcomes, which is what this diversity agenda is all about, equal outcomes, is not just killing our economy, it's killing all our services. The defense of this realm depends on getting the best people in those jets to fight for this country. We've lost the plot. We've completely lost the plot.
One of the lesbians running the Los Angeles Fire Department, she actually said, this is before the fire, she said the most important thing for the Los Angeles Fire Department is diversity. Wouldn't you think, Ben, that maybe the most important thing for the LAFD would be putting out fires?
Yeah, well, I mean, It's so obvious, but it clearly isn't the right answer, is it?
But this is the... I mean, we're laughing because if you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
Yeah.
But this is the madness from which we must emerge. Now, it's going to happen in America because of Trump. It's already happening in France, in Germany, and across Europe. Unfortunately, the lunatics, the socialist lunatics running our basket cakes country will preserve wokery for as long as they can. That's worrying.
Well, we have to just, we have to keep challenging it. We have to keep calling it out. We have to keep revealing the ill effects of their agenda. And I hope that pressure from across the Atlantic is now going to come heavily to bear on the United. We need tough love. It's not about circumventing the difficulties that Trump's going to create for Western civilization. It is, I embrace the difficulties he's going to create. I want his tough love, because through America's tough love, we will be forced to stand on our own 2 feet. That's what we need.
That's absolutely brilliant, Ben. What a great statement to finish on. Thank you very much to the brilliant Ben Habib. He'll be back whenever I can get him on, to be honest with you. After the news, we're going again over to America, this time to Los Angeles, to talk to Kinsey Schofield about that tragedy vulture, Meghan Markle. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the final hour of tonight's Political Asylum. At around about 10 o'clock, I'll be handing over, I do believe, to Andre Walker and Ash Gould, so you have been warned. That'll be in about an hour. They'll take you through till 1 a.m. into the small hours. In the next 60 sizzling minutes, though, first of all, we're going to talk to Kinsey Schofield in just a little while. But around about 25 past 9, it's over to you. So I want your calls. You know what we've been talking about tonight. Another 215 illegal migrants came across the channel yesterday, 260 on Monday. Still they come. What is this government doing about it? Their smash the gangs strategy has achieved absolutely nothing so far. No gang smashed, nobody caught. This week's contingent alone will cost us over the next year, £40,000 each, £19 million. Well, we have a bill for billions and billions, up around, I believe, £9 billion for our asylum seekers in this country, and our government's doing nothing. I don't think he wants to do anything about it. What do you think about our Prime Minister and his hopeless strategy, his hopeless policy to allegedly solve the migrant crisis? And in that respect, what the hell is he doing in Ukraine? Do you want a 100-year deal, partnership with Ukraine? Who mentioned that ever before? Did they ask us? Did Keir Starmer ask Parliament? Was there a vote on this? Was it in the Labour manifesto? Where did he get this from? What is he, our king or something? You know, he can't do this. This is a democracy. Your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Also, what about the NHS? Wes Streeting said he was going to sort the NHS, the Royal College of Nursing, today, reporting that patients die in corridors and they lie there for hours unnoticed. Among living patients, also in corridors, they're also reporting that patients are kept in animal-like conditions in the NHS. So what do you make of that? Is Wes Streeting going to sort out the NHS? What are we going to do about this absolutely barking mad behemoth? 0344 499 1000. And shouldn't the BBC just apologise for playing the songs of a drill rapper about killing people based on the fact he killed someone? Did a life sentence, 15 years, not really a life sentence. The BBC said it checks everything rigorously before letting it go out, editorial policy. Well, it didn't, did it? Because it let it go out. Why don't they just apologise? Robert Jenrick says the BBC, the state broadcaster, is fuelling knife crime by this kind of antics. Your thoughts? He's right, isn't he? 0344 499 1000. And also, God's sake, this poor, long-serving police inspector in Merseyside, up around Liverpool, Ross Meredith, fired summarily, career over, because he posted a few hurty words on social media about Just Stop Oil, those climate change nutters, saying they behave like spoilt special needs kids. They may be suffering from a mental health condition. And he was called into a misconduct tribunal hearing and immediately dismissed. Gone. Because the Merseyside police are so woke that they believe that his language has undermined their considerable efforts to be an inclusive force that represents all our diverse communities. Do you want that sort of thing going on? What do you think about that? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. 0344 499 1000. Now, let's go across to Los Angeles, to the West Coast, where the fires are still raging, and talk to our royal commentator, the excellent royal commentator, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hey, Kev. Good to hear your voice.
Always a pleasure. Now, you and I were discussing earlier in the week, these are very valid charges. A lot of people in Los Angeles, I know my own friends there. I'm sure you have friends. Some prominent members of the community there, like Justin Bateman, the famous actress, saying that when Harry and Meghan visited the fire-ravaged embers of burning buildings and people's homes the other day, the cameras, of course, handily there, catching them on camera. Justine Bateman said they're disaster tourists. Others called them tragedy vultures. Others called them grief grifters. They're cashing in for their own publicity purposes. That was the allegation. Now, you know, I don't know if they took that on board. They said they were offended. They told their favourite gossip column, page 6 in the New York Post, that they were very offended by what Justin Bateman said. Well, let me tell you, it wasn't just her. Loads of people are thinking that, particularly in poor Los Angeles right now. Anyway, old Meghan hasn't got the memo. She went back She went back today, or was it yesterday? You know, this time theatrically clutching bags full of supplies for the victims, hugging them and all that. I mean, when is she going to realise that this is tawdry? It doesn't look good. It looks like she's trying to get publicity for herself, to look like an angel who's helping the victims. When is she going to get that through her thick head?
Now, TMZ has been notoriously generous to Harry and Meghan when it comes to their coverage of them, to the point where I believe that they have gotten scoops directly from the Sussex's team in the past to thank them for some of that favorable coverage. And on their television show, TMZ's show, which is really fun because it's Harvey Levin, who's an attorney. He's at the, he's the head of the newsroom, and all of his reporters are shouting things out at him. And in their episode recently, they were talking about Harry and Meghan's trip to Pasadena, and there was only one person in the newsroom that believed that there was an ounce of sincerity there. Even Harvey Levin said, if I'm not allowed to go to see if my home still exists, and I see that Harry and Meghan are able to take a private tour with the mayor, I'm absolutely furious. I even saw a story today, which I know would crush you as much as it crushed me, about a man that couldn't get in to save his 3 dogs. He had to call a reporter who was on the scene. The reporter broke into his home and saved his dogs for him. That is how hard it is to access your own homes right now, your own land, and Harry and Meghan are just traipsing around in the ashes. Yes, it's absolutely ludicrous that she's still showing up and conveniently being caught on camera. You know as well as I do that if you have a relationship with Meghan Markle, you don't jeopardize it by posting something online that you haven't explicitly received her permission to post. And we found out that Meghan was at this charity event on Monday through a social media post by that charity, where Meghan was featured up close, hugging an individual and dropping off items. Clearly, she gave someone permission to post that. Where is the authenticity there? Where is the sincerity there when you are making sure that everybody's there to catch your good deed?
Yeah, and you and I discussed this the other day, but it's worth mentioning again. Look, this is the city of the stars. The biggest stars in the world live there, superstars. I don't know, Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, you name them. The biggest stars in the world. Now, they could have decided, it'll make me look quite good if I go down and see all the victims. They might even have decided perhaps it might sort of raise their spirits if I went down there. But I think every single one of them just felt, look, this isn't about me. That would seem inappropriate. This is not the time for celebrities to be photographed amid the wreckage. She doesn't seem to get this, nor does Harry. Tone deaf. Others saw, no, this is not for celebrity visits. She doesn't get it, to the extent that she gets all the criticism on day one. Tragedy vultures, grief grifters was trending, and she goes back.
Yeah, and I want to take up for Jennifer Garner real quick, just in relation to what you said about how we didn't see a lot of celebrities there. We did see Jennifer Garner there, and I have seen people try to use Jennifer Garner as an excuse for Harry and Meghan's presence. Jennifer Garner lives in that neighborhood, just on the outside, to the point where when Ben Affleck had to evacuate her ex-husband, he went to her house, which was just right out of the perimeter that was being evacuated at the time. She also lost a dear friend of hers from church in the fire. That is why she felt compelled to be there. This is her neighborhood, and she lost a friend in the fire. I don't think in any way, shape, or form that you can compare Jennifer Garner and Meghan Markle. Meghan drove almost 200
miles. Yeah. I mean,
to have to be documented helping someone.
It would be better, preferable, if she didn't do that. She also. They said, we've thrown open the doors of our Montecito mansion to all the loved ones and the friends who have been affected by the blaze. So I'd be interested to see a list of their names, the people that they've offered refuge to. Haven't seen that posted yet. Am I being too cynical here? I don't know. But anyway, I said earlier, one small solace is that Meghan has delayed, postponed the release of her Netflix cooking show, With Love Meghan, because it was supposed to come out this week on Wednesday. And yesterday indeed, she said that would be inappropriate. I've got some sympathy with that. We criticised her for allowing the trailer for the series to come out the day after the New Orleans and Las Vegas terrorist attacks. So that was bad timing. So we can't exactly have a go at her for delaying the release of With Love Meghan. So yeah, I've got.
Well, we can have a go. We can have a go over the fact that she tries to make it sound like it was her initiative and her idea, and I am hearing over here in Los Angeles that it was Netflix idea, and Netflix is the one that wanted to delay it. This was not something that, that is what the gossip is over in the States. Not that this was Meghan Markle's big idea.
I agree.
Her selfless idea.
I was about to say that. I mean, as I say, I'm sure that was partly Netflix as well. And it's been delayed or postponed all the way until March the 4th. I'm thinking time to re-edit, eh? Netflix thinking maybe we could sharpen this series up and make it a little bit less schmaltzy. I don't know. But the point is, by this announcement, it is a headline-hitting announcement. It looks like she's getting publicity for her show out of all this. So all of her actions here, they're just tawdry. And, my visceral reaction is that it's just wrong. It's wrong. It looks wrong. Here she is in the car park, theatrically, caught on camera, unusually, carrying bags full of supplies.
And you and I both know that we go weeks and sometimes months without seeing her. Don't you think it's a little suspicious that we've seen her twice in the last week and she is quote unquote volunteering? Isn't that a little suspicious that she can disappear for months at a time? But the 2 times we see her recently, she is conveniently caught on camera doing something for someone else. It reeks of, I need you to like me because I really, really, really need you to like my show because I really, 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 really need Netflix to renegotiate my contract.
Yeah, good luck with that, Meghan. I don't think your new contract will be forthcoming, to say the least. Kelly Osbourne also got involved today. She like me, she said, is it just me or does this feel all wrong? She just, same as Justine Bateman, just said these people are disaster tourists, tragedy vultures, photo op, turning the poor city of Los Angeles' horrible fate into a photo op. It just seemed all wrong. Let's quickly talk about her other half, old Ginger Nuts, Prince Harry. He's coming back to Britain next week, we understand, for another of his solo trips. She's not coming. As I've said many times before, I don't think she'll ever step foot in this country ever again. Anyway, he's coming back on his own. The King, the kind-hearted, forgiving King, has offered him a place to stay at Buckingham Palace. We hear, it's being reported, that he's turned that down. But he's coming back amid great disappointment on his part because he was hoping to get a full, fat police armed guard like the rest of the royal family get. He is only going to get limited protection. The deal he's got now is if he tells the police in advance that he's coming, they may decide to provide him with limited protection. He's going to get that. He's not going to get armed coppers, and he continues with his legal bid to force this country to pay for armed coppers when he returns here. He's been told by a judge, you're never going to get that, and yet he continues to waste millions of dollars on this futile legal saga. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are the fact that he's rejecting Buckingham Palace. We heard last time when you and I were discussing this, He put out a release through his people claiming that the king was too busy to see him when he was, I believe he was there for the Invictus anniversary, the 10-year anniversary of Invictus. I could be wrong. But we later found out that he was offered a place to stay and he turned it down. We believe that the excuse he used was because he didn't feel like it was safe enough for him. So you are offered Buckingham Palace and you turn it down, assuming it's for the same reason, it's not safe enough for you. Do you know how many armed individuals, armed public safety people are standing, I don't know what to call them, guards, are standing outside of Buckingham Palace, protecting Buckingham Palace, and in turn protecting him? That's crazy to me. It's a total slap in the face to the British royal family.
Yeah, so last time he came over, the king said, why don't you stay at St James's Palace? He said it wasn't secure enough, and therefore he stayed in a hotel, which by definition, as you quite rightly say, Kinsey, nowhere near as secure as a royal palace. Buckingham Palace is even more secure. It's surrounded by high walls, high fences, full of guards, definitely utterly secure. But as far as we know, he's going to stay in a hotel. You know, it's almost deranged, his approach to his own safety.
Kevin, it's his, and he has to continue to look like the victim. If he gives in and stays at Buckingham Palace, he's acknowledging a nice thing that the royal family is doing for him, and that doesn't fit this narrative. He has to continue to be the shunned son because he's monetized that, he's milked that, and if he stays in Buckingham Palace, it looks like they've given him an inch, and he doesn't want that press. He needs to continue to be, oh, woe is me in the media.
Yeah, it really is, you know, getting very tawdry, all of this. And as I say, you know, it's not just you and me. You know, we are commenting on what everyone else is saying about this couple, the gruesome twosome from Montecito's visit to fire-ravaged LA, where, among other shots, they were seen sort of walking through, almost sifting through the burning embers of someone's house. You know, there's their possessions on the floor. I mean, it felt to me like a kind of pretty nasty invasion of someone's privacy. And what do they think they're doing? That's what Justin Bateman said. What the hell do you think you're doing? How the hell, Kinsey, do you think their visit helped anyone accept themselves in terms of publicity?
I can't tell you that. I mean, did you know that when she attended the charity event on Monday, somebody in her camp told Town and Country that she also fed the volunteers? If you are feeding Town and Country, the fact that you fed the volunteers while you were there, your intentions are not pure. You are solely there to elevate yourself, and you are trying to change public perception. We saw you terrorize the Queen in the last few years of her life. Fake the curtsy. We know exactly who you are.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I still say that when With Love Meghan finally hits the Netflix screens, it will fail because most of us, I think could say nearly everyone, can live without her very important tips on how to freeze edible flowers into ice cubes, how to improve hummus by putting some olive oil in it, and how to bake cakes that are not perfect but are certainly joyful. I really can wait for that series, can't you? And I think everyone else can as well. Kinsey, fantastic to talk to you. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll talk again next week. Kinsey Schofield there, royal commentator all the way from LA. Let me know what you think. You know, do you think they're grief grifters? Are they tragedy vultures? Are they disaster tourists? Because that was my feeling. I just viscerally looked at those two and thought, what are you doing? You know, why are the cameras there? This is all wrong. If you go and do it without the cameras, then good for you. But with the cameras, I don't know. All seems a bit fishy, doesn't it? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. When we come back, your messages, your phone calls for the rest of the show. So all the way to 10 o'clock, it's all yours. So stay tuned.
suspended Labour MP Mike Amesbury. He has appeared at Chester Magistrates Court and basically he has pleaded guilty to assault by beating after punching the man in the street. That means there will be a by-election in the Runcorn and Helsby constituency. Now, he has a majority of 14,700. Reform UK came second at the election with 7,600. We know that's one of their target seats, so it could be a very interesting first test of how well Reform really are doing if they could take that seat.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Quick couple of messages before we go to the phone. Carl in Bury says, this copper, how come being diverse never includes normal people who aren't woke? Good point, Carl. The fact that he's lost his job proves to me that the police force are not inclusive. Otherwise, they'd accept all opinions. Yeah, they're not inclusive, because if you're not woke, they kick you out of the force. So that's not inclusive, that's exclusive. He should be allowed to have his opinions. You ban some opinions, therefore you're not inclusive. It's as simple as that. Very good point, Carl. And let's find one other. This is what have we got here? Hang on. Yeah, here's one about the BBC. This is from Chris. I've said it before again and again. If people really like the BBC, as they keep telling us, it should be a subscription service, not a compulsory tax. Yeah. If you like the BBC, pay for it. If you don't. I mean, I know you can do that anyway, but, the licence fee involves, you pay the licence fee, you can be done for watching ITV, as far as I can work out. As long as you've got your telly on, you can be done. So there are ways to get around it, but I think it's live telly or something like that. But either way, if people like it so much, they'll be willing to pay for it. I, for one, wouldn't, because it's not a very good service. No wonder Netflix overtook it in terms of numbers this week. Now, I'll read some more messages as we go along, but first, let's go to the phones, and we're talking about this rapper, this drill rapper, Jake Fari, who murdered a poor kid, 16-year-old kid, and then wrote a song about it. It's being played by the BBC, and he's been hailed as a promising star who really stands out. The BBC has failed to apologise for this, even though they have now banned him from the airways. Let's talk to Francis in Doncaster. Hello, Francis. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Kevin. Far-right knuckle dragger at your service.
Welcome, friend.
Yeah, to make a comment about this awful rapping person. It's not even music, so let's be real about that. What a wonderful opportunity to save the BBC some money by scrapping Radio 1 Extra in its entirety. Now, that would score the BBC a few much-needed brownie points, and it would save them a few bob into the bargain. Just saying.
Yeah, well, it would be good, but they won't do it. But I thought that their response, which was, we always check everything editorially before putting it out. Well, you obviously don't. What they needed to do here, Francis, and I don't think people would have been too blameful about it. They needed to say we made a mistake here and we're sorry, but they won't say it.
No, and they continue to charge us for not saying it. I've got another point, if I may. It's a quick one. So
go ahead.
It's hopefully to sort of draw a line under the rape gangs. Let's call them that. Let's call things by their proper names.
Yeah.
And it's a page from the New Testament of the Holy Bible, and you'll like this.
Okay, go on.
Now, this is more or less from memory, so if I get a few words wrong, forgive me. It's when Jesus was preaching and teaching to a group of people in some town or other, and I quote, "And he took a child and placed him in the midst, and he said to them, if any man harm but one hair on the head of one of these, then it were better for that man that a millstone were fastened around his neck and he were cast into the depths of the sea."
You see, you can still look at the Bible and you can get some serious messages. Yes, that would be a good idea. Unfortunately, you said draw a line under the rape gang saga. I'm afraid we've got the scandal of it all. We've got a long way to go before that happens, particularly as this government doesn't seem to want a public inquiry and doesn't seem to want to go after the people who turned a blind eye. I'll take either of those. I'd prefer all of the coppers, the social workers, the counsellors, the teachers, all the people in authority that turned a blind eye to the scandal of kids being raped, vulnerable white young girls, many of them underage being raped. I'd take them all being arrested and put in the dock. That would do me, but if it has to be a public inquiry, I'll take that as well. I would suggest put a year-long limit on that inquiry so it doesn't drag on for 10 years like they tend to. And that way, perhaps these poor kids could get some justice. But the way it is, we ain't drawing a line under this anytime soon, because essentially our government doesn't seem to want to do anything about it at all. Francis, very good call. Thank you very much. Call me again. Francis in Doncaster. I better go to break now. Del in Brighton, stay where you are. We'll come to you after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. A couple of messages before we go back to the phones. This is from Steve in East Yorkshire. He says, I just hope the 100-year support pact signed by the idiot Starmer with Ukraine isn't as bad as the deal he's planning with Mauritius over the Chagos Islands. For a supposed top-drawer lawyer, he seems remarkably thick. Yeah, well, I agree with that. Top drawer lawyer, yeah, my backside. The good thing about the Chagos deal is Starmer, rare feat of diplomacy, has said, well, we better wait till Donald Trump gets in to see if he approves our ludicrous, terrible deal. Trump's just going to say no. So hopefully that lunacy will hit a dead end next week and we don't give the Chagos Islands, the strategic Chagos Islands, to China's friend Mauritius. Now, here's another one. This is from Bernie, talking about Ed Miliband. I don't think talk has ever mentioned the number of shares Mad Miliband has in GB Energy. This is his sort of the government's kind of company that nobody can work out what the hell it is. They say it'll create 650 jobs, or hundreds of jobs, thousands of jobs, maybe, I don't know. Doing what? We don't know what it does. So I don't know whether old Crazy Ed has got shares in GB Energy or not. But will they make him any money if he has? I doubt it. Nobody can work out what GB Energy is, because it's not a supply firm. You can't say, right, my supplier will now be GB Energy, I'll pay them my energy bills. It's not that. I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. So your guess is as good as mine. Here's another one from Andrew. There's a much easier and many times cheaper way to capture carbon, and that is plant trees. Good point, Andrew. Don't forget the government is paying £22 billion to set up this kind of carbon capture scheme in Liverpool, I think it is, which will, instead of factories sort of billowing pollution into the air, this scheme means you kind of capture it and you pump it down underneath the sea and you keep it down there. It doesn't work. Even Dale Vince says it's madness. He's a eco nutcase, obviously. He says it won't work. Greenpeace says it doesn't work. But Green Fool Ed Miliband is pressing ahead, about to literally chuck £22 billion worth of taxpayers' money into the sea, basically. Right, let's go back to the phones and talk first to our friend in Lincolnshire, friend of the show, Mark. Hello, mate. What do you want to say today?
Hi there, Kev, mate. Yeah, it was just mostly about immigration and stuff. The way the Labour government is and what they're doing with the elections in this country. Because I've said in the past that the reason that I feel that they're treating people the way they are, the pensioners and all that kind of stuff, is because they don't really need to rely on our votes at the next election. That's what I think the plan is. It appears that might well be the case, because obviously they are looking at lowering the voting age anyway to 16 and 17-year-olds. But that doesn't just include 16 and 17-year-olds. They're also including, I believe it is, 15-year-olds that are within 6 months of their 16th.
I'll tell you what, Mark. I think even Starmer has worked out that this might not work out for them, insofar as this sort of 1970s style trope belief that all young people 16, 17 are left wing. I don't think it's the case anymore. I mean, I meet 16 and 17 year olds, and some of them, in terms of their right wing extremism, frighten even me. This idea all kids are left wing and all kids will vote for Labour, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I think you've got a point there for sure. But I think the 5 million migrants or foreigners that they're...
Yeah, that is a worry, yeah. That's what Biden wanted to do. That's what Biden wanted to do.
Yeah.
To enfranchise all these migrants who, in gratitude, would vote Democrat. Yeah, Labour have got a kind of plan. They do want to enfranchise as many people as they feel might vote for them as they possibly can. They are shameless in their manipulation or their attempted manipulation of democracy. But, hey, that's socialists for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is what they do, isn't it, at the end of the day? They like to destroy the country and, I mean, my overall thing with Starmer particularly is that he doesn't really care what happens to this country, what he does to these, to our people. what he cares about is how big a chair he can get at the global table when he's done with us. That's what it seems to be more about. And I think this is true of somebody like Trudeau or Jacinda Ardern, you know, clowns like that.
I think also, I mean, I get that, Mark. Yeah, I do think, you know, he's probably got personal plans. They all do, like Tony Blair. I know I'll become king of the world. I'll bring about Middle Eastern peace. I'll set up an institution in my name and make a damn fortune. You know, I mean, Starmer might have those plans, although he's already a millionaire, so he's probably not that bothered. But I think for the time, what we have to worry about with this guy now is he's an ideologue. His ideas are just socialist. He doesn't like Britain much, doesn't like borders, you know, wants the international Marxist brotherhood to exist. You know, he's not a patriot, doesn't like this country, and as such, we have a problem.
100%. If I can quickly change the subject before I go.
Yep.
Ben Habib you had on earlier.
I did, yeah.
When you next speak to him, can you ask him a little question for me?
Yes, I will, Mark. What question would you like me to ask him?
Because at the moment, I think I mentioned this to you previously, first time in my life, I've joined a political party.
Oh, yeah, you joined UKIP, right?
I did, yes.
Interesting, yeah.
And I'm quite interested because UKIP are actually looking for a new leader at the moment.
You fancy Ben, do you?
I really fancy Ben. I think he would... I mean, a lot of people would think, yeah, that's definitely going to split the right-wing vote. Well, yeah, it may well do. But as far as I'm concerned, UKIP are far more authentic than Reformer. I have serious concerns about...
I think a lot of Reform supporters I've been a little worried about the perceived direction of travel lately, that they seem to be going leftwards, I should say. And I'm hearing that Nigel Farage, you know, that he doesn't really believe that Shamima Begum should come back here, the ISIS Pride terrorist. I hope that's true. I can't get my head round the fact they want Charlie Mullins in the party. Charlie's a very nice guy. Don't get me wrong. I just don't agree with anything he thinks. He thinks that he thinks Brexit was a terrible mistake. He's still a Remainer, and he was extremely hardline on the COVID jab. In his company, he said, "No jab, no job. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't work for me." Well, I didn't agree with that kind of nonsense either. Charlie's a great guy, but I don't think politically embracing him is good for Reform UK. But, you know, we've got the local elections, Mark, in May. They will be interesting. Let's see what happens then. Mark, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much for the call. Keep them coming. Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's quickly go to Dell in Brighton. Wants to talk about the migrants. Hello, Dell. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hello, Kevin. Yeah, it's Del from Brighton, as you just said. I'm a proud member of the FRB, the far right bandwagon.
The knuckle draggers, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'm looking at my knuckles. They're all greys and you know, there's scabs all over them.
No.
Got to stop dragging them on the ground, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Yeah. No, I did get in touch. It was hours ago, but since then, sort of few things have happened, and it's really got to me the fact that you've mentioned that the since Monday the migrants coming over is going to cost us £18 million.
19 million.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Bad,
but that's just this week. You imagine, right?
Yeah,
So let me see if I can do the maths on the hoof. I'll almost certainly get this wrong, but you know, we have some days when 1,000 come across.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So what is that? What is 1,000 times 40,000? What is that? Oh God, I'm so useless.
40 million, isn't it?
40 million. Yeah, 40 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be a single day's worth.
Wow.
40 million pounds. Those people will cost in a year. The costs, Del, are astronomical.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I was actually phoning up about, and it's just that, you know, people say, what would be a good deterrent? Now, obviously, I sort of looked up today, every migrant that travels across France has to have some form of legal documentation to get into France. They can't do what they do with us, to come over here with nothing. They have got to have legal documentation that's got to be at least 3 months old, and it's got to say where they're from, who they are, what their name is, all this and all that. Okay? Now, they're obviously not coming the actual legal route because they're coming across in a little inflatables, you know. And
when they come here,
yeah. Then they're picked up by the RNLI and stuff.
The taxi service,
But they get rid of all their documentation.
They chuck them in the sea often.
Yeah, chuck it in the sea.
That's if they haven't got rid of them before.
Now, obviously, if their documentation proves that they were from a country that they were that they were definitely fleeing persecution from, why would they throw away the proof of that?
Well, actually, look, Del, I mean, who believes that the vast majority of these migrants that come across the channel, alleged asylum seekers, who believes that they're all escaping war and torture? They're actually coming from France. Last time I looked, France doesn't have any war, and it's not notorious for torturing people. So right off the bat, that's nonsense. And anyway, I think, you know, I don't know what the percentage is now, but I remember a couple of years ago, the percentage of migrants coming across the channel that were young men, males, between the age of 18 and 34, the percentage was 84%. These are not migrants fleeing terror.
No.
These are economic migrants coming over here to make a few quid.
Yes. But if the British government put out a statement just saying, right, any migrant that comes across illegally, which they are because they're coming across on the boat, haven't got any documentation to prove where they're from, will have no chance whatsoever on this earth of getting a chance of staying here as a
absolutely, Del. How often
as a migrant?
Do you listen?
You know,
do you listen to my show much? This could be me talking.
But obviously the thing is, why people say, oh, you can't just turn them round and send them back.
You could.
Well, of course you can, because at the end of the day, France let them go because they had the documentation. So if we take them back, we can say, here, France, this is your problem now.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And what do you think we've got out of giving France £500 million, £500 million to patrol their own beaches? The square root of nothing. We haven't got anything out of that at all. The money wasted to fail to solve the migrant crisis and continue to fail to solve the migrant crisis is an absolute disgrace. Del, I'm with you. You're absolutely right, but you're talking common sense, and our politicians won't talk common sense about this. Give me a call again. It was good to talk. Thank you very much. Del in Brighton. Let's go to break now, and when we come back, more of your calls.
happy Joe Biden proved to everyone that he has what it takes to be president. So now we have a new victim to defeat, Kamala Harris, L-Y-I-N apostrophe. Take a look at what happened. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Either Andre Walker or Ash Gould will be in the next few minutes to tell you what they've got lined up for you from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. You have been warned, but still time to squeeze in. I'll be back tomorrow, of course, with another edition of the Political Asylum at 7 p.m. Also, we'll be playing my TV show, which you can listen to as well as watch if you want to, all over YouTube and all that. What just happened, that comes on at 9 o'clock. I'll be back at 7, so be there or be square. Let's now go back to the phone. Let's talk to Teresa in Leeds.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
You're disgusted with Labour. Join the club.
Well, it's like watching the Muppet Show. I'm 76 years old, and I cannot remember a worse government than we've got now. I envy America.
Oh, God, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, with my heart and my soul, I'm so jealous of them, you know. Why can't we have a Donald Trump here to take us back to common sense, you know, to tell us, you know, no more of this net zero nonsense, no more of this wokery, no more of this ridiculous migrant crisis that could be solved at a stroke with a bit of resolve. Why can't we have a Trump, Teresa?
I don't know, darling, but I think if we had any brains in this party that's in power now, we might get somewhere, but it's never going to happen. And, you know, we can all see it. I'm not a rocket science, but they're just so... I get so angry. I've got great-grandchildren and grandchildren. What the hell is their future going to be after a government that's ruining this country even worse than it was before? It frightens me, you know?
Yeah, you know what? You've well said, Teresa, and yeah, I've often said this before. I mean, the Tories, I'm not burning any candle for them. They were disaster and they lied to us. They lied to us about the migrant crisis, both legally and illegally. You know, they can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. You know, they left this country in an absolute shambles. But you've got to hand it to Labour. They've made it even worse. I mean, that was no mean feat, was it?
No, it wasn't.
It really wasn't. It really wasn't. Teresa, listen, keep in touch. I've got to go now because the show's nearly over, but great call, and you keep me posted with your feelings about this government, because I believe you and I are on the same page. Teresa in Leeds there. Let's quickly go to the WhatsApp voice notes. Steve has called in. He wants to talk about Keir Starmer. Take it away, Steve.
We have to accept, right, that we've got a PM who actively hates the country, despises Britain, and so do all the people that he surrounds himself with, right? And you see, he's doing this by design, by the way. He's trying to destroy the country, and he knows he's going to get booted out. He's not going to last a full term, but he's going to do as much damage as he can in the short time that he's in office.
He's certainly, if that is his mission, he's doing very, very well, either purposely or by accident, he's wrecking this country. I don't think this Labour lot know what the hell they're doing. Rupert Lowe the other day said he's an experienced businessman. He said he's seen this look in their eyes before. He's seen businessmen who suddenly realise they're not up to the job they're supposed to be doing. He says he sees exactly that look in the eyes, the frightened eyes of the Labour front bench. They don't think they're up. They realise they're not up to this. Another WhatsApp voice note, that's from Ron on the small boats. Go on, Ron.
These boats, people who drive these boats get at least 10 years for driving it. They are just as responsible as the gangs. Now, would you drive a boat what's full of people? I wouldn't. If I was driving a coach, I was overloaded, I would get prison if something happened. These people should be arrested now, and it stopped the boats completely coming over.
Yeah, the thing is, though, what happens is they're not really part of the gangs. They're not the people smugglers. They just teach one of the migrants, you know, this is how you do it. You know, when you rent a boat on a boat lake or something, they just, one of the migrants does it. They're not the people gang. So I take your point, Ron, but the drivers of the small boats are just another migrant. Quickly, let's talk to Herbie in Harrow. Hello, Herbie.
Hello there, Kevin. Listen, as I said last night, how can we allow this Robin Hood in reverse take our money away the way he's taking it away? He's a madman. He's really a madman, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I cannot believe how insane this man must be to put us in such dire straits. I'm going to work out a list of what this government's costing us, on what they're spending, and how much us, the taxpayers, have got to pay it all back. And that's for like 800 million a year. Oh, don't even go down that road.
Well, I'll tell you what's good about that, Herbie. You're talking about the Chagos Island deal, right? What is good about that is late in life, Starmer and Lammy decided that before they signed the deal to hand the Chagos Islands to China's friend Mauritius for no apparent reason and give them £800 million a year. By the way, the Chagos Islands is 1,400 miles from Mauritius. Mauritius has never had sovereign power over those islands. It's never ruled those islands. So quite why we're giving it to Mauritius, no one quite knows. Even Mauritius are quite confused about it, but they're essentially saying, well, you want to give us £800 million a year for the next 99 years, we might be interested. The thing is that late in life, Starmer suddenly said, well, you know what, we better wait until Donald Trump gets into power next week, because America, of course, uses Diego Garcia, one of the Chagos Islands, as its strategic airstrip. We in Britain use it as well. That's why we shouldn't be handing it back. Anyway, so we want to get approval from Donald Trump before this happens. Let me tell you, Herbie, Donald Trump's going to say no. So it looks as if all of this is going to come to nothing, and that's a damn good thing.
But it hasn't come to nothing, Kevin. It's cost us money for this idiot to set up the...
Yeah, sure, but...
You know, to get it approved, to go through how much Lammy's cost us for going over there.
Well, yeah, I get all that, but at least if we don't do the deal, that would be something to take away from this. At least it won't cost us billions of pounds over 99 years to compromise our security by doing a ludicrous, inexplicable deal with China's friend Mauritius. But I agree with you, Herbie, Keir Starmer is either mad or is just incompetent. I suspect it's the latter, but I'll take mad as well. Herbie, thank you very much for an excellent call. Call me again. Herbie in Harrow, and Ash is in the studio. Hello, mate.
Yeah, man. All right. Yeah, Keir Starmer keeps bottling it, doesn't he? With the Chagos Islands, with the university free speech, with all kinds of things, isn't he?
Well, he's having to buckle a bit. I think that they've realised that there's socialist extremism.
Yeah.
No, it's just not going to wash with the British public.
Yeah, but something's changed, hasn't it, the last couple of weeks? There's about 4 different things he's just going back on.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting at the Chagos Islands, though, because I'm convinced, I don't think there's any doubt, Donald Trump's going to say, are you crazy? No way.
Yeah.
So all this nonsense we've been through for the last 2 months will come to nothing.
But why has he suddenly changed his mind? I mean, we knew for the last month and a bit that Trump's coming in. So
I think it's the reality of the fact that it's imminent. And even Starmer and Lammy have said, well, we mustn't annoy him that much. I mean, they've annoyed him enough already. But I think they've thought, well, hang on, maybe we